Region 15 coordinator. So I'm glad everyone's on. Thanks for joining. I think what I'd like to do is kind of just sort of jump in first and do a recap of biannual. If anyone was there, has any takeaways that they have. I think I started to share already just the energy that was there, and it was my first biannual and just meeting everyone. I think we had a great attendance, Deb, at our Region 15 meeting. I think we had nearly 60 people show up. And that was just wonderful. There was such great feedback. We got some commitments for our Region 15 symposium until 2027, which was wonderful. We had a table, obviously, at biannual. I think we had some good people stop by and want to learn a little bit more about, what the Region 15 coordinator position is and sort of how the chapters connect to one another. But if anyone else was there, I would certainly love to, hear about others' experiences or important takeaways. And I just want to lead with saying congratulations, Nancy, on your role for governance committee. Don't know if I formally got to say congratulations, but hurrah!
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Karen, I know you and we got to connect out. How was your
Yeah,
experience?
yeah, I know. I was just thinking, I said, oh goodness, I got to think of San Antonio again, and
Yeah.
back before the holidays and all that. Yeah, it was a great experience, and I thought that, it was nice to see younger people there, not so many older, and I was impressed with that, walking around, and so that was really good, and I liked the speakers, and obviously I did a presentation, and I got the one of the best compliments, which I couldn't believe, because this man from West Virginia came up to me, and we saw him out one night. I don't know if I told you this. Yeah, we were out one night in the Margaritaville eating, and he said that my presentation was one of the best of the convention. And I had about I don't know, Deb, how many people were in that room? I don't know. When I look back, it was over 200 people. And I did the Pachuca, which is a oral presentation, and you have to just say the narrative to the slides, and I had more people coming up to me at the end, and so it was a real positive connection for me, and my chapter, and getting my word out of what we've done to light the world for the student nurses in the Congo over in Africa, and how our little $400, they went from kerosene lamps and flashlights to getting solar lighting in their dormitory. So I think people are pretty impressed with, just that little bit of giving. And they are our fundraiser, and we try to do that every year to give them donations. And so I hope in 2 years I can do another little update, So it was really fun for my first time doing it. I was nervous, but even the moderator said, she said, you knocked it out of the park. She said, I couldn't believe how fun you made it. So I enjoyed it. So, once you get that first breath over, then you're okay.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up the Pachuca because that was a new experience for me. And I just have to say, the quality and content of the presenters and the research that's being done, and even those small, quick sessions, those rapid fire sessions, people really enjoyed those.
Yeah.
So thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah.
Karen, I just have to say your enthusiasm is really what made that presentation. I don't think anybody would ever have known, if you hadn't mentioned it, that you'd never done a PechaKucha before. And you knocked it out of the park, but I think it was just your enthusiasm that just pulled everyone in, and I just really enjoyed it. And I was so proud. I felt like a proud mama watching our people present. So
Well, I was glad I connected with you right at the beginning. I remember when Deb Chuck and I were walking around, I said, oh, Deb, you got to come if you can, and I had to look where it was, and, find the room and everything. But I was just so happy to have you in the audience as well. This, a person I could focus on, a person I could see, and a person I knew out of the sea of all those people I didn't even know internationally, so that to me was a real positive, and I appreciate your support. Thank you so much that you could come. Thank you.
I'm curious if anyone got to hear, who stayed through to Dr. Bibb's sort of call to action. Any thoughts on that and how we incorporate sort of that call to action in this next biennial? How, I'd be interested in people sort of sharing ideas of how, with Ken, it was be bold. And I, really want to take the momentum from biannual and see how do we incorporate that call to action. And if anyone has any ideas of how we could incorporate that into these next couple of years. And I think, not putting anyone on the spot, but maybe it's, a conversation of maybe I can create some more prompting in a next town hall, because I do feel it's something that, as each president sort of sets the pace and they want to create that call to action for how they envision Sigma during their term, how, our chapters can kind of support that call to action, if chapters feel that they want to support that call to action, and how we can best do that. And obviously, as Region 15 coordinator, how I can best support that. My understanding and sort of, I asked that question early on, how do I take that call to action and bring that back? Is it the literature? When you leave biannual, they give you some pamphlets and everything else on what that call to action is, and try to distribute that amongst your region and chapters. And maybe it's something that I may pose in a newsletter or on the circle, but I don't know. I just thought I might want to stimulate some conversation and see if others had ideas about how the call to actions have been incorporated, amongst in the region, if at all, if people had thoughts on that.
Jason, the more I think about that call to action, that simple represent, and I think we've had conversations over the years about how sometimes Sigma is seen as maybe not representing everyone. That sometimes people who aren't part of Sigma may feel like it's an elitist organization and, how can I fit in? And I really think this is a call for us to take a look around us and say, who is not represented here? And how can we reach out to the underrepresented and bring them into the chapter, help them to feel feel a sense of belonging. Like, yes, you do belong in this organization. So that was the first thought that I had when I saw her call to action. And I absolutely loved all about it.
Great.
I'll go off of that because I felt it was very caring and very nurturing and very inclusive of everyone. And I felt it had a much, nursing is science and it is the art. It's the art of caring. And that's exactly the essence that I got sitting there listening to that. And, with Ken Dion's Be Bold, I kind of struggled with that a little bit because it just the tone of it was a bit, and I know it's in the past, and but to me it just was a bit harsher, and to be bold, and sometimes you just always can't be bold. I mean, I think as nurses we are assertive, we get what we want, we know what we need, and we get it. And I mean that just kind of, I mean, it was just a word, I guess, but it was his call to action, and we went with it, and we we were courageous, we did what we needed to do, and certainly during COVID, we've come above that. But I think the caring and representing and the caring and the art of nursing was definitely encompassed, and that's how I felt, and I came away with that with a real positive feeling. So it was really good to bring to my chapter the information.
Thanks, Karen. That's great.
I think, Jason, your idea of putting information out there on the circle or throughout the region would be helpful, because most Sigma members, they'll go online and they'll see the words, this is the plan of action for the next biennium. What does it mean? Most members don't have an understanding of what's meant by that, and there's some way we can capture that very succinctly and get that information out to our members. I think that would be helpful.
Great. And one of the takeaways I had listening to Dr. Bibb was, in her message of, for her, she loves bridges. And she showed all these bridges that, she takes photos of and always wanting to be her authentic self. And, I think every president brings, their past experiences and wants to have a message that they connect with. And I think some resonate better than others. But I agree with you, Karen, was that art of nursing, and that I just keep thinking of, we each have our authentic self that we can offer up, which is something so different for each of us, of unique talents that we bring. So I like, to Nancy, sort of how maybe I can share that on the circle and regions. And I would say, as each of you go back to your chapters, think of Dr. Bibb's message and see, are there ways that that can be incorporated into your own chapters, and how are you doing that? Because I would really love to get to a point where, when we get to the next biennium, how did that message resonate? And what did chapters do to kind of take that message and move it forward? So I just wanted to start the conversation and appreciate people's thoughts. Any other thoughts before I move on to anything else? All right, great. The next thing I wanted to sort of discuss were the committees that we have right now, and sort of looking at what, you know, right now we have sort of three committees that we were working with: awards and recognition, communications, member engagement. My question is, do we keep those committees? Do we have any new committees? Did these work? And just sort of thoughts that anyone might have as far as, what other work we should sort of focus on in this biennial. One of the things I mentioned with Deb is we kind of had our handoff baton was, maybe coming up with a strategic plan. I would love to come up with a document for the Region Symposium. We've done such strong work, and I want to be able to create a document that, is maybe it's it continues to grow and connect, but something that each year we hand off to the next chairperson, and is just, a resource guide, and if others feel that would be valuable. So any thoughts around committees and sort of maybe creating a strategic plan moving forward?
Yeah, Jason, I think it's a great idea to draft some sort of a, whether you call it a strategic plan, but or some sort of guiding document. And that was one area that I sort of fell short on, was, we didn't have any real firm goals. We had committees, but really didn't set specific goals, specific timelines for tasks. And I think we set, we laid the foundation. And I think building from there, I do think those of us who've been serving on the Region 15 Symposium, we have some templates. I think it would be really helpful to come up with a toolkit that maybe, and I think you and I talked about maybe having it on in the library on the circle to be able to access that at any time, like suggested timelines, templates for submitting abstracts, templates for reviewing the abstracts and scoring, all of those sorts of things. So I think, maybe that could be a goal over the next couple of years, is coming up with a toolkit, rather than relying on human, passing it on. We've done pretty well so far, and I think we will continue, but you never know,
Right.
Well,
So
I second that. I second that idea, that strategy. It's a good idea. That would make it easier. So like it's, because in the beginning, I think, and Emily may want to speak to this, is you get this not you get, you have committed to producing a presentation. And how do we go about doing it? Oh, well, I know that I gotta get a venue and I know this, and but it's not like, if we could do like that, you said, a toolkit with maybe like a checkoff sheet, what you have to do and how you can do it would I think be very helpful. And again, I think Emily weighing in on this, being the newbie would be helpful.
Yeah, Emily, I'm kind of curious. I mean, where are you? I mean, not to put you on the spot, but I think, we're amongst friends, and, where are you at sort of now at the beginning? How are you feeling?
I mean, I do think it would be helpful, but I don't think that, I mean, I don't feel like I'm lost. I feel like I, have enough information from being on the committee in previous years to know what we need to be doing. But
Good.
I do think that, having that in writing would be helpful.
And, I think also too, would be interesting now as I get into this role, how, are there other regions that are doing their own research symposium? Does every region do their own research symposium, or was this specific to Region 15, Deb?
I don't think it's unique to us. I think there are variations on collaborative events like this. The beautiful thing about our region is it really is geographically small compared to some of the other regions. I mean, some of them out on the West Coast and even in the Midwest, huge geographic areas. And, we're little old New England and Nova Scotia. So at least, we're within driving distance of each other. So I think that has lent itself to us being able to do it as an entire region. I think some of the other regions may do it more regions within the regions, if you know what I mean,
Yes.
more geographically close. So, and that's something you might want to pick the brains of some of the other regional coordinators when you have your meetings with them, learn a little bit more
Yeah.
about what they're doing. And I'm also thinking, not only a toolkit, but I think it would be helpful to write a little bit of history about where this started and how it's evolved, because often, we know the nuts and bolts. I got to get a place and I got to get catering and we got to think about a keynote and when do we send out the call for abstracts. But then we often have conversations around, well, how did this get started anyway? And where did this seed money come from? And what are we supposed to do with the seed money? And what happened? So I think having maybe a little history as a prelude and then the nuts and bolts might be helpful.
Great.
Another thing that might be helpful, Jason, is I know last year Emily and I were both on the planning committee, and I think that was very useful so you could see the whole process. I'm not sure who's doing it next year and if we have anybody from that chapter on the planning committee, but it might be nice to invite a representative if we don't.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up.
And I think to what you spoke about, Deb, the committee has had, the planning committee has, let's see, 2018, so 18, 19, 20, there's 5, 6 years. There have been some of us who have been on this since the beginning, and we know this, so it kind of helps facilitate. But in the future, we're not going to be here. So I think having a living document is going to be very helpful.
Yeah.
And I really, Sandra, that's a great idea, inviting someone from the next year's committee, not committee, who's going to host the meeting, the symposium, that they be invited to be on this committee.
And I know next year, Omega Mu, my chapter, is going to be hosting in Vermont. So I've reached out to.
Well, it just better have lots of stars and whistles and.
Yeah. Oh, don't you worry.
I'm sure it will.
And since we're sort of talking about research symposium, I did want to ask Emily, I know your next planning committee meeting is February 8th.
Yes.
I believe at 6 o'clock, correct?
Yes.
And any needs that you have right now, or would you like, do you feel you need more people on the planning committee, or are you good where you're at right now?
Um, well, actually, I'm really surprised that, so many people had volunteered to be on the committee and I didn't have to ask people to be on the committee. People were just, finding me and telling me they wanted to be on the committee. So I I mean, I would welcome more people, but I don't think we need to, try and recruit more people.
Okay. But wanted to just give a shout out on the date too, so people can save the date for that, just in case they hadn't gotten that date. And then on the committee, so we have 3 committees right now: awards and recognition, communications, member engagement. Do we feel we should stick with those committees? Is there a feeling of changing that? I mean, for me right now, this is my first term. So for me, I'm still trying to get a feel of, I feel like 3 is enough. I almost feel like in one of these, maybe with communications, maybe it is including that, living document or, for the symposium, and incorporating that into these, because I do want to be mindful of people's bandwidth and time, because there's a lot, right, already. But before I sort of proceed, do we just stick with the committees that we have right now, or is there a feeling that any of this needs to shift? Cheryl.
Jason, it might be a good idea to actually take a step back and start with a strategic plan and figure out, what do we want to do as a region going forward. And once we've got some goals set out, that might help us figure out, are the 3 committees enough? Do we need 3? Do we need to add one? Do we need to take one out? But I think if you're goal driven, it kind of drives the boat as far as, what all groups do you need to work on getting those goals accomplished. And there might even be some sub goals for each of those committees. But does that make sense?
It does. And I think, Deb and I had spoken about this, because my feeling was, when you're thrust sometimes into this, the support that you get and everything else, you're trying to absorb some of that. And I think, one of the things that I'm trying to look at is maybe we should look at a strategic plan, so we can sort of look at where we are and what our needs are as a region, and then build it from there. So I think that's a good idea. And maybe that's where I sort of take this. I think we have enough people engaged in our region right now. We have enough people who, came to Region 15 meeting and wanted to volunteer. I will keep engaging with those members and keeping everyone updated. But maybe the next step really is creating a committee, a strategic plan committee, and, being able to just sort of start fresh and create a plan. Do you think people would be on board if that was the direction we took?
I'm happy to help with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So we have a plan then. So, I think, the committees that are there right now, I'm not going to do a lot of movement or shifting on that. I think we have volunteers, people who are showing up if and when there's a need, but let's get a good strategic plan. Let's assess what the region sort of needs and wants, and create a document that has some good goals, smart goals, and go from there. Deb, sorry, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I would be happy to be part of that process too, Jason. And I'm just thinking, so those 3 committees are actually, they're suggested committees from headquarters, from
Okay.
Sigma International, and the description of the committees, the roles, responsibilities, again, all came from, I just took that directly from Sigma. And that's not etched in stone. That's at least a starting point. I'm also thinking, how there's been a suggestion that chapters use the oh my gosh, I'm having a senior moment. The Key Award, the chapter Key Award, use the Key Award document to develop your strategic plan. There is that document that I sent to you, which is the report that we have to submit as a regional coordinator, which I didn't know about until I was asked to submit the regional report. And I thought, man, if I had had this at the beginning of my term, that could have helped drive some of the activities. So I would suggest maybe taking a look at what is the information that headquarters is asking of you as a regional coordinator, and maybe use that to help guide your strategies, your goals, and whatnot. And some of it is around member engagement, chapter challenges, things like that. So, and maybe share that with the rest of us so that we have an idea of what headquarters is asking of you for information. Does that make sense to everyone?
That's great, Deb. Very good idea and helpful. Now, the other question I have is, do people like the idea of a monthly town hall? Do we think every 2 months? I have the bandwidth. I don't mind doing a monthly town hall of keeping everyone updated and keeping this sort of format. If people think every 2 months is more appropriate, any thoughts of keeping that
I
communication?
think 1 month, it goes so fast. Time just goes zing, it's like, I think 2 months is better, because then if people working on things, they have some time to kind of work on it and pace it out. Because my goodness, 4 weeks is like, that's it. It just, oh, it's up again, I mean, I know my monthly meetings, they just come so fast, so I don't know, I would go for every 2 months. I think 1 month is a bit short.
Okay.
My opinion.
And what about speakers for town halls? Would it be valuable to bring in, I don't know, other region coordinators, or getting leadership from Sigma, or having some students, I would love to, one of the things, the takeaways we had from biennial, we had some great students who attended, and how could we highlight them and bring them into the town hall and maybe have them share some of their experiences? Do you think we could do that?
That's a great idea.
You
They're
know,
the future of Sigma.
maybe each town hall, we highlight a student, and, we bring in their work, and we bring in, we make a commitment to that.
That's
And
a good idea.
and if people have ideas, I'll put this out, to the region, but would love ideas of how we can best highlight students and bring them in and get them to sort of, engage in this conversation. I think that would be wonderful.
Mhm.
I like your idea too, Jason, of maybe bringing someone or folks from headquarters. Because some of when we did the survey toward the beginning of my term, some of the issues that came up. I mean, for instance, there was a new president of a chapter who the previous president didn't have time to do a handoff, and they just ghosted them. They had no idea that there was an annual report due. They had no idea. They had zero idea. And I spent probably an hour on a Teams call with them to walk them through. They didn't even know who to reach out to. So I wonder if we, had someone, I'm thinking of some of the staff there that can address maybe a town hall. This month, we're going to focus on, how you do your annual report, what information you need to gather, or, some of the issues that might come up for some chapters that they don't even know where to reach out. That might be something that would be helpful too.
Great. I like that.
Jason, I think inviting students is a great idea. But I think if we're going to do that, I think if we just put out an invitation, having worked with students for so many years, I think your response rate may not be great. However, I think if we designate a chapter maybe where, or even, and some of us that are at large, we have multiple schools in our chapters like Beta Zeta, but it sounds like we're not the only ones. But I'm just thinking to be able to select a student or to do the presentation rather than just making an open invitation. You know, they're all, I mean, our students, mostly they're working, they're, you know, trying to squeeze in their deliverables to their instructors on time. So, so I think, so a lot of times, you know, if you put out an open invitation, the attendance is not great. However, if you know, if you have a student, if we each have ideas of students who might have some work that would be great for them to present, or even a topic to discuss, but something a little bit more structured is, I guess, is where I'm getting at.
And I think that's sort of where my question really is leading, is that I would, and I think it fits in with Dr. Bibb's message, you know, something that we were discussing earlier is, you know, how do we include others? And I'd love to include some students in the work that they're doing. And I agree with you, it needs to be sort of a little bit more structured, but that's why I wanted to start the conversation, see how we could do that. And maybe it's a chapter, you know, we pick a chapter within the region to say, you know, do you have some students that are doing good work and would love to present at our next town hall? And so I think that's my call to action right now. You know, start thinking of your chapters, and if you have students that are doing good work, you know, let's do that for our March town hall.
I just like to say that I agree with Cheryl, with students, you do need to have structure. And I think that if we're gonna bring students in, that it's incumbent upon us as Sigma members and mentors or teachers to these students, that we be the ones that support them, that are behind them, that help them in whatever way that we can, or assist them so that they're comfortable at this kind of a forum. I mean, this is pretty, when you get on this as a student, it's like all these quote big shots in nursing, and I'm just a lowly student. I mean, you got to think like they think. And you know, they are busy with home lives, and it depends on where they're at, if they're an accelerated or an undergraduate student. But do we want to talk about a presentation? Do we want to talk perhaps maybe about the student sharing some of the issues or concerns they might have related to their nursing education or to their membership in Sigma? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Cheryl Cibola, but maybe you could share a little bit about what you're doing with what she's doing with Leslie Gelling in our peer collaboration with Phi Mu in London.
So we're creating a student-led program, and we asked for student volunteers. So we did get 5 volunteers from our chapter, and we do have 3, I believe, from the Phi Mu chapter in England. And we've met twice already. And then I met with Dr. Gelling, is Leslie? Yeah, who's the president of their chapter. And we're going to offer a 2-hour program, which will be free to all students. They don't have to be a member of Sigma, but to get every student engaged, to hear from a couple of nurse leaders. And then the majority of the time we'll have breakout rooms where the students from the US and England will collaborate, and we're going to have like 3 questions per breakout room that a few moderators will just ask, and trying to get them to collaborate on similarities, differences, issues, and then, you know, bring them back together and share. And it's just a student-led. That's what we're hoping.
Well, and let me ask you this. Do you think of those students that you have that, you know, 1 or 2 of them would like to present, you know, at our town hall?
I was thinking of them as we were speaking.
Well, maybe that's our first one. Do you think March would be an appropriate timeline for them to come in and, you know, be able to talk, and you and I can connect, you know, and I'll
Sure.
make sure that as moderator, I will make them feel welcome, and I know everyone else will too, and, you know, introduce them and, you know, have them present on their topic. I think that would be phenomenal.
Okay, great. I'll work on that.
All right. Okay. And Emily, I see your hand up.
Yeah. So our chapter has student leaders, and other chapters probably have something similar, and their role is organizing the service projects with other students. So that might be something that they could present about. We could ask the student leaders to present about their service projects, and that would probably be something that other people here might be interested in hearing about, because people could take it back to their chapters too.
And I do feel that, the forum can be open. I mean, even if there's a student that has a personal story, of nursing or an experience. I mean, I think, again, we can keep it organized and succinct. And I think, my sort of way of doing that right now in my head is that identifying, those students, ahead of time and working with the leadership of the chapter, who want to bring the students in so that the students are supported, and choose the topic and then be able to highlight that for our town hall meetings. But I think, again, I think the topics can be, very diverse. But it's just keeping, as others have said, keeping it sort of organized and making sure there's a methodical approach there so that they feel supported and they're not just thrust in to present to us.
Do you have a date for the March meeting?
I do not yet. I like Thursdays at like 7 are usually good for me, and I feel that through other town halls, the 7 o'clock timeline just worked for people. And my hope is just to keep it an hour or under. But if that works, I'm kind of looking ahead right now. I could give a tentative sort of look at either the 21st or 28th of March, at 7 o'clock as the next town hall, and see if that would work for your students, if either of those or both of those work.
I would prefer the 28th. The students are on spring break on the 21st. And the program is actually that Monday, the 25th. So I think they'd be able to share more with their findings.
Well, this is great. So now I have the next date for the next town hall so you all can put on your calendars. So March 28th, Thursday at 7 p.m. And that's really all the agenda items I had. I think we've got some good productivity out of this. Did I do okay, Deb? Did I do you well? Okay. As I said to Liz when I first joined on and others hadn't joined yet, I said, I'm kind of like a wrinkled shirt. I'll get there. I'll iron out the kinks, but I'm in good company, so I don't feel too bad. Well, anyone have any other comments, closing comments or thoughts or anything before we close? Adjourn? Yes, Karen.
Yes, I just had, so similar, in April 10th, I have all the seniors students, nursing students, presenting in an academic symposium, and there is 26 of them, and they will all be doing poster presentations. So if the next town hall meeting is not going to be till May, I mean, I know they're going to be graduated, but I'm sure I could probably wrangle a few, so I could be on the docket for May. And I know that some of the posters were phenomenal. I mean, I've already seen them. So, I mean, they had done them in their nursing research a year ago, but now they're presenting actually at the academic symposium. And some of these students will actually be ones that will be inducted in our April induction ceremony. So that would be really kind of neat for them to kind of give back as well, to do something for the chapter as well as the region. So I can, if not that we're going that far ahead. I know in March we'll probably have the May date, but I'm sure I could get a couple to come in for that if you wanted.
Well, I love this. I love how an idea just already people, they like this. I can tell people get the light is on. So this
Yes,
is good.
it is. It
Good.
is.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Well,
And I do hope, I'm going to interject here, which is so uncommon, right? Is thinking for the symposium. We've wanted to encourage nursing students to submit abstracts and to present. So I'm putting that out to all of you who are here, that you think about the students that you're teaching and the work that they're doing. And I don't mean just undergraduates, I mean all levels, to really look at when we put the call out for abstracts, looking to encourage students to participate. And we now give out awards, cash awards to the students who do a really, and we have a rubric to assess the presentations. So they can actually even, go home with some money.
Which is always nice, right?
But it's great to hear, and the students they always bowl me over with what they're doing. I mean, they're just, and this is our future.
Yeah.
Well,
And I'm gonna throw out a, what do I want to say? A challenge, if you will, for each of us to personally invite someone to come with us to the next town hall. And Jason knows better than anyone that personal outreach can make a huge difference. So I would say if each of us can invite someone from our chapter to join us at the town hall, it'd be
I
great
like
to see.
I like that because it's uniting, right? We can bring other people in, and beyond the call, I can see people side by side. And I think this fits in with sort of the direction we want to go. So that's great. Well, I'm
This,
just,
Jason, one
yeah.
other thing, I'm sorry, this is just logistical, but
Yeah.
as you're planning for the March meeting, you might want to think of a time frame. If you're trying to limit your meetings to 1 hour,
Mhm.
you might want to think of a time frame to give the students for what
Yes.
you're asking them to present, and also have that go first so that we're not tying them up with the business portion of the meeting, so they can get on to the things that they need to do since they are so busy.
Great. Thank you for that, Sandra. That's helpful. We'll do that. All right. Well, thank you for those who came and for all your feedback. What a great engaging conversation. I look forward to seeing you all in March. And if I can do anything in the meantime, you need any support as your regional coordinator, please don't ever hesitate to reach out. Okay.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thanks a
Jason.
lot.
Nice. Thank you,
Good night.
Jason.
All
Bye,
right. Have a
everybody.
great night.